Good day, everybody. Dr. Nick here. Welcome to the podcast for Syphilis, Sex, and She Comes First. Today is October 20th, a Sunday. And today, I have a surprise for everyone. I have a special guest sitting here. Her name is Lauren. So, Lauren, take a hot second and just introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Like Dr. Nick said, my name is Lauren. A little bit of background about myself. I've been in the field of social work for almost 9 years. I have a Bachelor's of Arts in Counseling and Social Work. I'm a certified family life educator, and I'm a licensed mental health professional. I've worked in social work in various fields from human trafficking, domestic violence, criminal justice, and currently I work for an AIDS service organization, and there I specialize in housing case management, which is all-encompassing in regards to public health, public wellness, and the most important thing about my job to me is education. Knowledge is power.
So, and also, I'd like to say this too. I'd like to thank everyone who hit the like button on like Spotify and iTunes and iHeartRadio, and thank you for sharing this podcast with your friends and family. It really means a lot because I'm still growing this little podcast from me and my old 10-year-old Apple. Still a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. Today, myself and Lauren, we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about something that is extremely important. If you didn't know, about 2 weeks or so ago, the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, just put out an alert talking about the high rates of STDs in this country. So since we are both in the area of sexual health and health promotion and STD prevention, we're going to talk about that today. On October 8th, the CDC just put out a new report talking about the sharp increases in STD rates in this country.
And so this report found that the combined cases of syphilis, gonorrhea, and chlamydia reached an all-time high, and that nearly 2.5 million cases of these STDs were reported that year. And more importantly, the CDC has documented an increase in STDs for the 5th consecutive year. So what is going on?
That's true, because I know for a fact that a few years ago we were talking about all these STDs being at historic lows, and now only 5 years later we're talking about at historic highs. So as Lauren just said, what the hell is going on?
So while Dr. Nick and I are experts in our fields, we're not the experts. The experts are the CDC's Division of STD Prevention, Dr. Gail Bolin. And so she was asked what's contributing to the widespread STD transmission. And her response was that there are 2 factors that are contributing to that: the rise in condomless sex, and then also a rise in high-risk sexual behaviors associated with opioid use and addiction. And so with these risk factors also comes lots of high-risk sexual behavior. And in our world, we call that survival sex. A lot of people don't understand what survival sex is, but for people who are involved in opioid or IV drug injection use, or who are maybe homeless and fleeing different situations that have caused them to lose their housing, sex is a way that they can provide for themselves temporarily, and sometimes unwillingly. Sex is a way that they can take care of meeting their needs. And when you're engaging in risky sexual behavior and you're in survival sex mode, a lot of times the first thing that you are not thinking about is condom use.
Exactly. And in many cases, there are, especially teenagers, especially those teenagers who come out, tell their parents that they are gay or lesbian, and they are kicked out of the house. They might not have any resources available to them. So unfortunately, they may start to engage in survival sex at a very, very young age, which in turn puts them at risk for getting an STD and or HIV, unfortunately. So these are just some things for you just to start to think about as you go about your day, but you have to understand these risk factors are definitely out there.
And more importantly, it's not just the young people who are being affected. There's also a rise, especially that the CDC is seeing, in pregnant women and heterosexual women, which means that the populations who were previously associated with STDs are kind of getting away from that, and the STDs are infecting a whole new population. And this is directly correlated to those high-risk behaviors, high-risk factors.
At the same time, that study from the CDC also brought to light changes in American sexual behavior.
So that CDC finding determined that Americans' sexual encounters indicate that most Americans are having sex less. And when they are having sex, they're not having safe sex because sex isn't a priority, which makes a lot of sense. Think about it. We're in this day-to-day, go, get more, have more, do more, work more. Everybody's asking more of Americans to do more, be more, have more. And so we're not focusing on sex.
Which is actually very telling because somehow sexuality and sexual health has actually fallen on the list of priorities. So we have to be mindful what caused that change, what made people stop paying attention to our own sexual health. How far backwards can we actually go?
And why are we not placing a priority on sex and, more importantly, sexual health and wellness and education?
So in closing, as you know, I like to end on somewhat of a positive note, and I have to talk about the need to bring back an old concept that for some reason vanished, and it's the idea of practicing safer sex and having safer sex and using condoms and actually caring about your own sexual health, because this is the only body we had. Because I think back to the time back in the 90s and those T-shirts and those stickers that sex equals death. That was an extreme, but you know what? We were talking about sex. People were still having sex, and we were trying to protect ourselves from getting various STDs. And that's just the truth. But for some reason, now recently we've been cutting funding for programs that we know work, and we're putting money into programs that don't.
Exactly. So in 2016, the United States budget for abstinence-only marriage, sex education in schools, which has been shown time and time again to be ineffective in both combating teen pregnancy and STIs, was increased to $85 million per year. And the average high school health course includes less than 4 hours spent talking about STIs and pregnancy combined. 87% of these programs allow parents or guardians to exclude their children from even hearing this information.
Yes.
No wonder.
No wonder, exactly. So you can kind of see why we're in the situation we are in today, because no one's talking about sex. We're not being educated about sex, and the education that we do get about sex is lacking information, and it's probably biased.
And so not only are we putting more funding into programs that are not effective, like the abstinence-only program, we're taking away funding from programs that are effective, such as public health, wellness, and the prevention programs that the CDC promotes.
Yep. So we just want to end with this one idea, just to leave you with this one idea: making your sexual health a priority for you and your partners. Because no one else is going to do it for you. So, I mean, back in the day, it was just, we had to figure things out. But now there's so much information out there. As a matter of fact, we should probably go back and check out some of that old material from the 90s, because it still works, except all that abstinence only stuff, because we already know that stuff does not work at all.
Correct. And so my final thought on this would be, love yourself well enough or enough to educate yourself. And then also love your partner as enough, no matter what kind of partner they are to you, to let them know and have these conversations. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk more about sex. Let's talk more education about safe sex.
Yep. So on that note, we are out. And we will talk to you later on. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Bye.